Hey you guys, hello and welcome. I hope you guys are all doing really wonderfully today. This is my third time filming this video. I kept getting interrupted by a dog on the other side of the road, but fingers crossed this one will go well. I really wanted to talk about sage. This is common sage, pretty popular plant. An important culinary herb, especially in English cooking and many Mediterranean cultures. Has a very savory flavor profile to it, and it's incredibly abundantly fragrant. And it's a pretty fast grower too. So this is Salvia officinalis. It's in the Lamiaceae family in the order Lamiales, which is a group of plants that is distinguished by being quite fuzzy, very fragrant, and what's the other word I was going to use? Uh, Edible. So they're very versatile in the kitchen, is one thing that I also wanted to say. They have a bilabiate flower to them. It's kind of a spike that usually has cool tone flowers to it, born in groups of two, and they usually go all the way up. It blooms in midsummer. The blooms are usually pink to purple to white to blue in color. They do attract butterflies, which is really nice too. Yeah. So a few things that I wanted to say about this plant. It does very well in somewhat alkaline soil. In my experience, I had soil with a pH of about 7.4 to 7.6, and this plant does very well for me in that pot. So they're very good in containers as long as you have really good drainage, and I've noticed that they like a bit more of a fibrous, airy mix. I recommend bottom watering because it really encourages the roots to go down. And when the roots go down, you get more of a well-established plant because this is a perennial plant and it does overwinter. It is somewhat evergreen in nature, but it does upsize some of its lower leaves as it matures and becomes more woody. But ideally, you want to make sure that it keeps some of its foliage throughout the year. So the mature height of this plant is about 3-4 feet, depending on how healthy and vigorous the plant is. Mature spread is a little bit more than that. If you have a really big clump, maybe 4 feet, 4.5 feet, but more typically around 3 feet. They like temperatures that are quite warm in the summer, and then I noticed they like a really noticeable dip in the winter. So these plants will be most successful for you if you live in an area that gets somewhat arid, very dry summers that are marked with temperatures around 30 degrees Celsius. That tends to be a good target point for these guys, and that also encourages blooming and more full growth. So generative and vegetative growth are both enhanced by high temperatures. In the winter, if you guys can keep this around 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, they tend to be quite happy, although they are a little bit frost tolerant. They're frost tolerant and cold tolerant to about negative 10 degrees Celsius, I will say, but plant quality greatly declines the colder it gets, and they do eventually succumb to frost heaving. A good way to ensure that they overwinter well for you is to plant them near a house or in a container that's portable that you can put near the house. That tends to be a really good way of preserving them through the winter. These plants will do way better for you if you have them in full light. Not a plant that really likes getting interrupted by crows. Not a plant that likes too much shade. They are tolerant of a little bit of later in the day shade, but they do benefit from full sun. Another thing I really want to say about this plant is I've noticed that it does attract some flies. I don't know why flies like it. They really do, especially when it's blooming. So just be mindful of that if you're not a big fan of flies flying around, but I think it's worth it for growing the sage. If you want to harvest the sage, I recommend cutting them right back almost to ground level, putting them in bunches, and then suspending them from raffia twine or some sort of a string a few feet from the ground in a dark, dry place. And then you can dry them for about 3 to 6 weeks, and then you can grind it into a powder and use sage that way. Or you can harvest them just by simply pinching the top nodes. You can also propagate this in water, by the way, and just use that as a garnishing or in a stew, for example. If you want the essential oil, you can get fresh sage and then just press it in like a guacamole press and then just extract it that way. I recommend using another distilling oil to sort of spread it out more and get more bang for your buck, essentially. It's a very woody plant. It's native to the Mediterranean, so it's native to especially areas around the Aegean and Ionian Sea. been naturalized all over North America, many temperate areas too, I've noticed. There's different varieties too, but sage pretty much reacts all in the same way. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? If you want more of a mounding growth habit, just continually pinch it. I usually do my first pinch in about March, and then I continue every week until about mid-August. You don't want to pinch and harvest too much too late into the season because you want to prepare it for the winter so that you get more longevity of your plants, so that you don't have to constantly repurchase them. Now, I got this from a company called Howlings. Ruben Howling, the guy that's the manager of this company, is really nice. Personally, I recommend them. Not sponsored, not that kind of YouTube channel yet. But they're a good company, and I recommend buying from them. This has been quite a good experience with this particular plant. Another thing I really want to say is they do benefit from bottom watering, not just because the roots go down, but they don't like having too much water on their leaves. This kind of paves the way into getting into rot. So just something that you want to consider for prolonging the lifespan of your plants. Now, another thing I just really wanted to show you guys about my sage. This is a 4-year-old sage bush. It's just coming back. It's gone somewhat dormant. This is kind of what you can expect in colder climates. We had a very cold winter here. It was like -20 at one point, and this plant was just very exposed. No wind protection at all, but it still came back and it's giving me new growth. So this is just a testament to how hardy this plant is. So now the very last thing I want to say about sage, particularly English sage and common sage, is if you're going to grow the seeds, they're very small, speckly, almost looks like broccoli seeds, round and dark, with a hard shell. Highly recommend that you don't plant them deeper than 1 centimeter into the soil, because they do require a little bit of warmth and light to germinate, from what I've known. They benefit from liquid feed fertilizers, and yeah, that's about it. Very easy plant. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon. Stay blessed.